Since this is my last video before Halloween, I figured it should be somewhat topical, and what's the most frightening thing I can think of when it comes to Halloween? Yes, social justice warriors. Therefore, here's a short video by Laci Green, who's apparently teamed up with MTV to produce some feminist shorts called Braless. It would be more accurately called Brainless. But let's see what Laci is hot under the collar about this time as we look at why she thinks you should be a feminist for Halloween.
It's that time of the year again. I'm so ready for spooky stuff like horror movies and cavities, but maybe not so ready for the horrors of sexism and racism. Well, hey, Laci here. Halloween is a ton of fun, and thanks to the internet, it's also become a bit of a show showcase. Like, wow, look at all the ignorant and insensitive people in America. Yay!
Yay! Your favorite topic. It's the only reason anyone pays any attention to you at all. But like most other radical crazies, you just see these things behind every tree, whether it's actually there or not. And when people tell you that you're wrong, that your position is not rationally supported, you throw a fit. You stomp your feet, you scream and yell and call everyone else a misogynist and try to get them to shut up. Welcome to modern day feminism, where free speech is not allowed and disagreement is a crime.
Now, I'm always trying to be a little less than I was yesterday, which I often fail at, but if you're trying to too, here are some things that we can do during Halloween time. Idea number 1, say bye-bye to slut shame. Sexy Halloween costumes actually became a thing after the sexual revolution. The whole idea behind them was that women have a right to our own sexuality and self-expression.
And indeed, you have that. But for every action, there is a consequence, and most modern liberals, they don't want any consequences. Now, I don't care what you wear. You can wear anything you want. You can look the way that you want, as good or as bad as that might be. But what you cannot do is force everyone around you to make you feel good for looking that way. Now, I know this is a bit off topic, but I think it's important to point out that a lot of modern liberals, feminists and otherwise, don't just want the freedom to express themselves how they want. They want freedom for being criticized for making unpopular decisions. They don't want the freedom to be who they are. They want everyone to rally around them and tell them how wonderful they are, and that's just an unrealistic expectation. They don't just want to have the right to their own opinions. They want everyone else to validate their opinions, and when they don't, they attack with a flurry of insults and personal attacks, trying desperately to get anyone who doesn't buy into their rhetoric to shut the hell up. Just watch some feminist videos, especially those that respond to people that they disagree with. It's really disgusting.
For our generation, Mean Girls definitely solidified the concept of a slutty Halloween costume. But showing skin doesn't mean someone's any less of a human being or any less entitled to basic human decency and respect. If you want to talk scary, slut shaming is often the first mental step someone takes toward justifying acts of sexual violation on Halloween night. So let's go ahead and leave that crap in the past.
Oh, really? Then, if you're going to assert that slut shaming over Halloween costumes results in sexual assault, you're going to have to come up with a bunch of data for us. Got any? Didn't think so. Like so much else on the left, it's all a bunch of emotionally charged assertion without a shred of actual evidence to support it. So, I went and did some research and couldn't find any evidence anywhere that suggests that any of this is true. If the prevalence of so-called slutty costume results in more sexual assault on or around Halloween, and I'm going to say around because a lot of Halloween parties take place in the weeks before and after the actual day, then we should expect to see more sexual assaults reported to police during that time period. Now, while it is difficult to come up with rape-specific statistics for a single day, what I did find seems to show that Halloween tends to have less crime across the board. In fact, for Halloween 2012 in Washington, D.C., violent crime was down 26%. Violent crime includes rape. Property crime was down 11%, and overall crime was down 15% versus the year prior. A recent study for the years 1997 to 2005 tried to determine if sex offenders did indeed take advantage of Halloween for their crimes. Now, while it was primarily concerned with underage molestation, it found that there was no real difference between Halloween and any other time of the year. In fact, rapes tend to peak during the summer and fall off as the year becomes colder. Thus, by Halloween, it's nowhere near an annual high, nor is there any demonstrable spike in sexual crimes. So this, as usual, is just a load of feminist bullshit.
Idea number 2, why settle for sexy? On the flip side of the coin, there's something weird about the fact that the female versions of costumes are always sexualized versions, even for little kids. There's firefighter and then sexy firefighter. There's pizza rat and then a sexy pizza rat. Well, pizza rat's always sexy, but you get the idea. If you want to get sexy, that's awesome. But it shouldn't be the only option for costumes based on your sex, and certainly not imposed on little girls. When we have a choice over how our sexuality will be presented, we draw the line between sexual subjectification and sexual objectification. As more people speak up and talk about this, companies have actually started to crank out more costume options, so keep on rabble-rousing.
No, there's nothing weird about it at all. That's what most women dressing up for Halloween want. It isn't a conspiracy by costume makers to force women into buying sexy costumes. They produce what their customer base wants, and overwhelmingly, that seems to be sexy costumes. That's not to say there's no other options, just that the most popular and most purchased costumes year after year are the sexy versions of costumes. But as has become painfully commonplace, a lot of feminists seem to think that women who do not follow their mantra, these women are just mindlessly being dragged around by the nose by the patriarchy. Any woman who doesn't come to a radical feminist conclusion apparently has no agency of their own and cannot think for themselves. If you want to know an offensive opinion of women, that's one right there. But what about men? Are there no sexy costumes for men? Well, of course there are, and in no short supply. But feminists hate men, and if they pointed that out, they'd lose what little credibility they have. Besides, if you don't like the costumes that are out there, make your own. Nobody's stopping you. Halloween stores have no shortage of supplies to put together any kind of costume that you want. But again, they're not going to bring that up because that throws their point right out the window.
Idea number 3, maybe don't do blackface. You can still totally dress up as Crazy Eyes or Olivia Pope, just without the face paint. Dressing up in blackface has a long and ugly history. It started as part of minstrel shows, which used caricatures of black folks for comedy. The joke? Lol, black people, aren't they so stupid? Many people who do blackface are explicitly calling on racial stereotypes as part of their costume. It's a type of mockery that targets people based on their skin color. Even if disrespect isn't the intent, that doesn't change the impact. Blackface effectively reduces black identity to a costume. Modern-day racial inequalities aren't something that people of color can take off at the end of the day. They're a daily reality.
Wait, hold on a minute. You cannot mock someone who isn't going to get offended. Offense is something that you do to yourself. No one can force offense on you. But again, this is something that is part and parcel with liberalism, that anyone who does anything that they don't like, even if they are not the ones being mocked, they take offense. They're getting offended for people they think ought to be offended, and when they're not, they get upset at them. Just yesterday, as I record this, a good friend of mine called me and said that he was on a Halloween costume forum where he said he wanted to dress up as Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, he's white, and a lot of social justice warriors, and I have no idea why they would be trolling the forums, but they were. But a lot of social justice warriors got mad at him because he wasn't black, and he's apparently wanting to play a black character. Of course, they don't realize that for the overwhelming majority of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s comic book history, Nick Fury was a white guy. These people don't care though. According to them, you can't have a white guy playing a black character, so there. This really gets ridiculous.
Idea number 4, just like races aren't costumes, neither are cultures. Costumes like geisha or Indian rely on degrading racial and cultural stereotypes.
Laci? Geisha isn't a culture. Geisha is a job. It isn't a degrading stereotype. It was, and to some degree still is, an honored and respected career. Besides, there are white geisha out there, so it isn't like you're insulting the Japanese. And of course, this leads straight into...
It also further normalizes white America's tendency to disrespect and mock cultures that are different from our own. The implication is that white culture is normal and superior. Now, America's lack of cultural competency is nothing to brag about, least of all with a tacky costume. There are a million costume possibilities, and I think we'd all do better tapping into our creativity instead of recycled toxic garbage.
Okay, I know this is a liberal bugaboo, but all cultures aren't the same. All cultures aren't as good as all others. Some are demonstrably better, some are demonstrably worse. Multiculturalism is idiotic, whether you like it or not. This brings us around to things like claiming that anyone who dislikes Islam or speaks ill of Islamic practices is a racist. You people are idiots. Islam is not a race. Islam is a religion. Sometimes it's a political ideology. It is practiced by people of pretty much all races, and your ignorance on the matter is absurd. But knowledge isn't something prized by the left. They don't want anyone to be offended, ever, by anything, and they don't care how convoluted their quote-unquote reasoning is. Oh wait, there is one group that they don't care about offending. White males. If you're white and male, you're fair game. You can be offended at will. These idiots want equality my ass.
Alright babes, do you have more tips? Share them down below and keep it spooky out there. But not too spooky. This also marks the end of season 3. What? It's been an entire year. Thanks for joining me for the ride. There's a bunch of other episodes to watch if you need your fix while we're on break. And until then, stay braless.
Yeah, no thanks, Laci. Just watching this episode made my head hurt. It really is ridiculous how these people think. Well, not think. Emotionally react, because that's all they really ever do, and that's the problem. They don't step back and look at the beliefs they hold and the ideas they espouse and recognize them for the total absurd garbage that they are. They're too busy mindlessly reacting to things emotionally, and because their progressive stupidity makes them feel good, that's as far as they're able to go. And if you don't agree, they want you to shut up by threatening you, going to your employers, filing DMCA complaints against you, etc. Luckily, a lot of us, since this is an international audience, live in a country where we have the First Amendment guarantee of free speech, where we have the fair use doctrine which gives us the right to respond and criticize videos like this, where leftists ranting left and right online really doesn't make a bit of a difference. Now, I know that once I put this video up, invariably I'll get feminists throwing around mindless insults in the comments. It's happened before, it'll happen again, and I will disregard it, except for maybe laughing a little bit, because they cannot present well-reasoned, well-evidenced arguments for their claims. The things that I and other YouTube content creators make, it makes them feel bad, so they whine about it, but they have no credible rebuttals for what we say. That's why the only ones who take their twaddle seriously are the ones who have very little between their ears. Thanks for sticking around. I hope everyone has a happy and safe Halloween. Please let me know what you thought, but only if you have something intelligent to say. I guess that leaves the feminists out. Like always, like, subscribe, and share, and let me know if you have any other reasonable length videos that you want me to take on. I'll be back in a couple days, so stay safe and stay rational. Somebody has to laugh at the feminists after all.